Michael Joseph, Chairman of Kenya Airways. Pleasure to be speaking to you today after the release of your earnings. If I might start and just first request an explanation as to your arm. Have you been mugging people, Michael?
I wish there was a much more exciting explanation, but what actually happened is I fell walking my dog in London in November.
Oh no.
And I landed on my shoulder, and I didn't notice it for a long time, and then it's got more and more painful, and eventually I tore a tendon in my shoulder which had to be repaired. And so I've been delaying this operation for months, and so eventually I had it done on Thursday. So it's
So it's wishing you a speedy recovery.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Michael, you came into Kenya Airways as chairman. How long ago was that?
October. I came in October.
And since then it feels like there's been a flurry of activity. Today you released your full year results. Can we just talk about those results? I saw an inflection point, a bit of a turnaround in the profitability. You kept saying two things stuck in my mind. We need to be profitable. And you said there's more than light at the end of the tunnel. Just characterize for me how you look at these results and what's been achieved so far and where we're going.
Look, I think first of all, I have to give credit where credit is due. I mean, this is not my doing. This is the management team's doing. That has been a long time in the making. But I think what's happened in the last, say, 6 months is this extreme focus now on revenue. This is very easy. This is a very complex business, and it's very easy to get lost in cost structure, cost restructuring, cost saving. But focusing on the revenue per route, on the revenue of the network itself. And I think this is what the management team has done, is now focused on the profitability of the network. If you took any one individual route, let's just take a very popular, well-known route, Nairobi to Mumbai.
Yes.
Okay, Nairobi to Mumbai, actually, if you took it on its own and you look at the profitability, it's not a very profitable route for us at all. Okay, but if you didn't have that Nairobi Mumbai route, you wouldn't have the other routes coming from the rest of Africa. And so you're bringing people from Bangui or you bring Bujumbura to Nairobi to fly to Mumbai, and that's what makes the network profitable. And that's what the focus has been, is to look at the profitability, maximizing the revenue on the network as a whole.
So optimizing the network.
Optimizing the network to make maximum.
And do you think you've made gains in that?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, we've seen the results. There's a long way to go. This is a really complicated business. It's probably the most complex business I've ever been in.
Yes.
Okay, I've only been in telecom business, so I shouldn't say that really, but it's highly complicated, it's highly regulated. There are a lot of external factors that you do not control. Governments, weather, regulators, operational performance of the planes. But I think we're definitely making headway, and we're looking at routes, every single route all the time, to see whether it is still a good route for us to fly. Not always in terms of profitability, as I say, because each piece adds to its overall profitability of the network. And so I think, we're definitely turning the corner. I think what we have done, or maybe what I have done, is from a board level is bringing that focus down to say, okay, we've gone through some hard times. We've had the forensic audit. We've had this, looking around to see where all these things are. And now focusing the management team on producing results and focusing on that, and I think that's what, to some extent, we have done at the board level.
If I can just talk through some of the numbers, there was a small slowdown in the headline turnover, full year turnover figure. I think it was about 8%. Was that all to do with the reduction in planes and the number of planes, would you say?
Essentially, yes.
Yes.
In terms of the turnover, yes.
Yeah.
In the reduction on well, it's a very complex, but ASKs and all these, and I can't even stand here and say that I know what I'm talking about. But yes, it definitely is the turnover. The number of passengers flown has improved, as you can see. Has gone up, but it's more competitive now. I mentioned before. Our biggest competitor is Ethiopian Airlines.
Yes.
Very efficient airline, very smart, very big fleet, very new fleet. Much bigger than ours, and probably going to double and triple in the next few years. But they state-owned, state-funded.
Yes.
No unions or anything like that. So the competition from the Middle Eastern airlines is very strong. So where you see increasing in passenger, but not commensurate increase in turnover, is mainly because of that. If they talk about the yield, the yield per passenger has gone down.
Has gone down, but your cabin load factor has gone up.
Yes.
And then just to touch on this point you're making about competition, I was in Mombasa this weekend. I saw Ethiopian on the runway uplifting people directly out of Mombasa. Just describe to me, I mean, is it the competitive scenario? Each time I'm at Jomo Kenyatta, I see a whole bunch of Middle Eastern airlines. Is that the new normal? Are we all, we can't fight that, or?
Well, there is an agreement between the African nations at a presidential level or a government level of open skies policy, where you can fly anywhere you want. You just have to apply and you can fly, but you have to get permission to fly. I think we're seeing the result of that. It's a deliberate opening up the skies to competition to bring the prices down, and that's the result of you see so many airlines flying. Of course, we would rather not that happen. Of course, as an airline, I'd rather be a monopoly, of course. But that's not realistic. That's not going to happen. What we need to do is to be as efficient, and also as we've said, is improve on the hub of Nairobi as a hub. And so just like Emirates, focus on Dubai as the hub, and Addis is for Emirates. That's what we need to do, and make sure that we are efficient as a hub. Of course, they're going to face this competition, but once again, we need to manage this carefully. This is Kenya Airways, belongs to the people of Kenya. The government has a massive stake in Kenya Airways. I don't think it's the right thing to do to open up the skies completely to the detriment of Kenya Airways. It should be managed.
Yeah.
It definitely should be managed carefully. Otherwise, what will happen with all these? I can be quite honest and say, if you look at Emirates and Ethiopian and Qatar and all Etihad and all these airlines, they are all state-owned lines. But remember what they are doing. They are bringing people to those countries.
Yes.
Dubai would not exist without Emirates.
Of course not.
So it's part of the marketing plan.
Yes. So it's the ultimate hub.
Yeah. So so we need to make sure that's our competition.
Do you feel satisfied that Nairobi as a hub is ready to play at that kind of level?
It's getting there. I mean, we need to build a new terminal. We need to do more. We probably need another runway. We're still getting there. I think we still have some ways to go. I don't think we have the funding to be a Dubai. To build another, 3-4 runways. I think there's another runway on the cards. But I think we definitely need to do more with Jomo Kenyatta. It needs to be improved.
Yes.
The whole process needs to be improved. I'm not satisfied with the whole customer experience in the airport.
That's my big bugbear.
Yeah.
I mean, we're landing there, and when you land there, you land in a shed practically.
Well, it depends on where you land. If you're at Kenya Airways, you don't land in a shed. Okay,
that's right.
You do if you come with some other non. Yeah, but we need to improve it, and we are working with Kenya Airways, Kenya Airports Authority. We are their biggest customer. I think we are 60% of their revenue. So we need to work with them, and they also have their own financial challenges.
Yes.
But we are working with them. But we need to do more. I think as a customer, as a passenger, and just in my competitive nature, even we Kenya Airways need to do more at that airport for our customers. We're not great.
Because I've never understood why you don't have free Wi-Fi for everybody the moment they land. Can you imagine the sort of excitement?
There's a lot more we can do. But remember. And I don't want to be misquoted here because I'm not sure that whatever I say is complete. But we don't own the airline, the airport.
Yes.
Whatever is, we are a tenant in that airport.
Yeah.
We pay a rent. We pay a passenger fee per passenger landing there. So we don't control what happens when you get in there. What we do control is when you get into our lounges that we can control and give you a better experience. I think, and as a business class passenger, I've been to our lounges. We need to do better. We're not good at it, and. Vincent there and the team, the chief operations officer, we are working together to give the passenger a better experience, particularly the one who pays more.
Yes.
And I think you'll see some changes coming over the next 6 months or so.
Great. Can I just go back to those earnings? I mean, Mbuvi, the CEO, said, look, 60% of our revenues come from Africa. We understand Africa. Also within those earnings, I saw a $40 million hit, which was foreign exchange related. Is the cost of doing business in Africa too expensive for someone like Kenya Airways? Or do you think that this is all now manageable, these moving parts, FX, civil unrest, elections? It was quite an optimistic picture he painted.
Yes, but I think if you're an African airline, if you want to be an African airline, and that's what we want to be, and we want to be the African airline, then you need to take into account these challenges that you have in each country. If you don't want to be an African airline, then okay, fine, don't fly there. But if you want to be the African airline, then you need to take into account, the currency issues, the unrest, the civil unrest, all these issues. You need to take that into account in your planning, and that's why you need a good team to plan and to take into account these things. No, for sure. I don't believe at all that if you want to be Africa-centric, you need to do this. You need to fly into places which are not the easiest places to fly into. I mean, you've seen low-cost airlines come and go now many times. The reasons why they go is because they can't manage the lack of infrastructure in some of these airlines, places where we fly into. For instance, on the Embraers, many times we fly with an engineer on board, a third person on board, because there is no service capability in the places
in those
where
airports
we
you're
go
going to.
But that's part of doing business in Africa, as far as I'm concerned.
So is that partly one of the reasons why you have delays if something breaks down in an airport?
Sometimes,
yes.
yeah, sometimes, because particularly if you fly into an airport where there's no service capability.
Yeah.
So many times our flights have an engineer on board, just in the event of something happening. Also, in terms of unavailability and delays and things like that, we notice it more here because, if your plane gets delayed, it gets into the newspapers. I mean, you go to you travel a lot, the planes are delayed all the time.
Yeah, that's right.
And I must say one thing that impresses me tremendously as somebody who's traveled many, many millions of miles is the safety considerations from a maintenance point of view, serviceability point of view, and attention to detail in KQ is number one. I mean, I've been behind the scenes.
Yes.
It's impressive.
Yes.
And we are not only regulated by the Civil Aviation Authority in terms of when we can and cannot fly, but you're also regulated by the people whose engines you use, the plane you use. Boeing has some regulations. GE has some regulations, and they monitor this on a 24-hour, 7 days a week basis. So if something goes wrong, and your plane is not fit to fly, it does not fly.
Yes.
And of course, because of Kenya Airways, financial challenges over the last year, we don't have any spare aircraft. So if one aircraft goes down, it goes down. There's nobody none of the aircraft we can find in the hangar and bring it out and fly it again. So that adds to our challenges. That's why you'll see that we mentioned in there maintenance is very, very important, and that's why our relationship with our strategic partner KLM is very important, because they have 787s, they have Embraers, they have 737s. So we're working. I want to have a stronger relationship with them, so they can help us when things go wrong.
Because there was quite a lot of criticism at one point about the nature of that relationship. Do you feel that's now come?
I think it was misunderstood, the misconception. I think a lot of the negative connotations or the negative sentiment was expressed was, what rights KLM have, what say do they have, what contribution are they making. But if you look at the way things are done now, KLM is our strategic partner. I didn't ask permission to appoint a CEO from KLM.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
KLM is part of the board, and the decisions are made at the board. I think the misconception comes in the joint venture.
Yeah.
And we have a joint venture. We have a strategic partnership, and we have a joint venture, and we have co-chairs. So they're all three different things. But the joint venture is one of the most important and valuable parts of our relationship with KLM. So what happens in the joint venture is all the flights that originate in Paris, London, and Amsterdam, that KLM and we fly, are pooled. The revenue is pooled. Okay, so if KLM flies from Amsterdam to Dar es Salaam, for instance, we don't fly obviously from there. They fly to Kilimanjaro, I think sometimes. They fly to Entebbe from Amsterdam. And of course we fly to Paris, we fly to Amsterdam, we fly to London. That revenue is put into a pool. And then out of that pool we take out each of us our operating costs for our own flights, our own planes that fly. And then the balance is distributed on a 50-50 basis.
That's interesting, isn't it? And
not many people
really
understood that, and I think we've not made it really clear. It's rather a complex calculation the way it's done. And in fact, there's even more to that joint venture. In fact, when our passengers fly from here to the US, as we were not able to fly there, and they're flying via a KLM flight to the US, we get some of that revenue from that Amsterdam to the US. Some of that revenue is added into the joint venture as well. So it's of benefit to us. Yeah. It's never been clearly elucidated how it works. No. But that actually is one of the most profitable parts of the Kenyan Airways operation, is that joint venture. Now, can it be improved?
Yes,
for sure it can be improved. Will it be improved? Yes, it will be. With the KLM Air France merger, we might see an Air France added into that joint venture. So, but that's essentially what happens there. So it's just been misunderstood, and I think we've not done a good job in explaining it to the media or whomever else has got this bad. So can we have a better relationship with them? Absolutely. Yeah. But we need to milk, no, use the wrong word, we leverage that relationship more.
That's interesting.
And that's what I intend to do.
Because it's always been, that relationship's typically, I've noticed the media keeps taking pot shots at it and saying that it hasn't really served KQL, but no one has ever told me this explanation.
I've explained it once to the president as well, and he was astonished, Yes. And I said, this is it. It's a very important relationship. Joint ventures between airlines is very, very important. Very important. Yeah.
Michael, look, these results, headline, there was a profit at the operating level. There were a few one-offs that we saw. The FX was one of them. Obviously, the elephant in the room is the refinancing, restructuring of the balance sheet. John asked the CEO about total debt, and he said it's in excess of $1 billion. You responded by saying, look, it's not necessarily about reducing the debt, it's about lengthening the maturity, reducing the cost. And if we're making a profit, then we can service that kind of debt. Can you put us in the picture of where we are now? You've been saying it's been imminent a couple of times. Where do we stand, and is it all doable, and do you feel confident that this is going to put it on a sustainable footing?
Okay, so this is a really complex restructuring. Now, it's quite difficult to understand it all, but there are many partners in this. If I can try, I can tell you what I can tell you, and there's some things I cannot tell you, obviously, because we're a public company and we have shareholders, you have minority shareholders and so on. So we have the government, who is a major shareholder and a stakeholder and an important stakeholder. We have KLM, a shareholder, stakeholder. We have the lessors, who, I don't know if that's the right word, the operating lessors, which is the people we bought the 787s from, funded and supported by Exim Bank. That's a big chunk of our debt, there's 500 million there. We have the banks, the local banks, who are one of who are part of our debt, a significant chunk. And then we have some smaller operating lessors of the Embraers and things like that. So all of them, we need to bring all of them together and get all of them to agree on a restructuring of that debt. Okay, so it's Exim Bank, the lessors and everything like that. So we're on a path with that. Every partner in that, and I think there's 7 or 8 of them.
So there's quite a number of people.
There's a number of people. Now we've hired this company called PJT, which are capital restructuring experts. They've done this many times for many other businesses. So there are 7 or 8 pillars which we are now negotiating with, which I would say that with we are probably 85% now of all of those people now have made some kind of concession or relaxation or whatever. Okay. And there's just a few holdouts that we still need to deal with. It's all coming together. Okay, now it's coming together because at some point we have to now make a statement, because there is there's a conversion of debt into equity. There's new money coming in from the partners, from the shareholders, and all of this is coming together. We're not there yet because we're a public company, and we not make sure that we got everything correct and everything lined up and everybody signed up. In fact, it's so complicated that I think there's like 70 different documentation that has been prepared. I mean, the legal fees are astronomical. But, I think there's a little bit of a clue here, is that, I've asked Nairobi to stay on for another 2 months.
Yes.
Look, when I came on board, this thing was going to be done in December. Then it was done in March. I think now we're on the end track now. We're there. And in fact, we must be, because we continue much longer. We're thinking, is it not going to happen? But I think we're 85% of the way there. A couple of things that we need to close, particularly with the stakeholder, with both KLM and the government. And I have some meetings with the government this week. They've been very, very supportive. But I think that's about all I can tell you now. But I think in the end, what will happen is that we will have a restructuring of our not of the main debt will remain, of course, because we still have to pay for our aircraft. We're still making some sales, and some of the 777s that are with Turkish, we might try to sell some of those still, but they are actually earning us money. But in the end, the debt will be maybe reduced by some 1 or 2 aircraft, But it's just that the term of their debt will be extended and give us a bit more breathing room now in order to make the necessary investments to improve the operations of the airline in order to pay back this debt. So that's what we need to do. So we need more cushion right now. You know, when you're going hand to mouth all the time with your suppliers and your banks, you know, from on a everyday or 30-day basis, you're getting, you know, it's difficult to invest in the improvement of the airline. Like, for instance, I would like to improve the food on business class, for example, all the food, you know, but it takes investment. Now, I don't have the cash to do that at the moment, you know. So once we do this, we will have the cash to improve, and then when we have more passengers, more profit, pay back the debt.
Let me ask you for some final comments. You're an incredibly successful CEO at Safaricom, $20 million investment, we were just talking about it, $8 billion market cap today. When I met you as you were coming in, well, I think the president asked you to come as the chairman of KQ. My impression was, you know, you saw it as a national interest issue, you saw it as a personal, something that very personal that you wanted to deliver for the country. Do you think in these few months, and going by these results, it certainly looks so, you've delivered what you wanted to? You said there's light at the end of the tunnel. How do you read it in closing?
I think, look, there are lots of moving parts. I have to be quite honest and say, okay, I think we're on the right path. I'm not 100% confident that, you know, at this point. I'm 90% confident that we're going in the right direction. I mean, you know, there's lots of things can happen. We could have a bad election result, you know, things could turn, we could have another travel advisories. All these things can impact you going forward. But I think, you know, from what I came in to do, of course I have not done it yet. I think it's a 3-year journey.
Yes.
And I think, quite honestly, I think you will probably see this time next year is when I expect to start to see real good results. I don't think we'll see them until then. And that will depend much on third party and the things that we can control. But certainly, you know, coming in to do this job at the request of the government has been interesting, challenging. But I think it's one of the most fulfilling things that I've done, in terms of that, you know, you can take a national asset and turn it around and make sure it's on the path in perpetuity for success. And I think that's a hell of an achievement. You know, is it better than the Safaricom thing? I think, you know, from where I am now, when I started Safaricom, I never expected us to be as successful as we are today. Of course not. Am I immensely proud of it? Of course. The challenge that I have is that my legacy is Safaricom. So people expect me to do as well with Kenya Airways as well as with Safaricom. Well, I don't think we'll ever see the EBITDA margins that Safaricom
that was a phenomenon.
I don't think you'll see those, not in the airline industry. But I'm very happy, and I'm very happy doing what I'm doing now. It's challenging physically and mentally. It's challenging, but it's also extremely fulfilling.
Michael, thank you very much.
Okay. Pleasure.
Much appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great stuff.